Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Barbados. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at the stage now of the press conference, and to lead these proceedings, I'd like to invite to the stage Mr. Wole Famurewa of CNBC Africa.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chad Blackman. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying and sticking around for this engagement with those that we have on stage. And I would very quickly introduce them, and we'll get right into this press interaction. We have, of course, she just walked in, Her Excellency, the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, joining us. Thank you so much for your time. Yes, you can put your hands together for her. We also have Professor Benedict Orama, the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the AfriCaribbean Bank. Also on stage right now is His Excellency Albert Muchanga, who is the Africa Union Commissioner, Economic Development, Trade, Tourism, Industry, and Minerals. We also have Her Excellency Ms. Nardos Bekele Thomas, the Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Union Development Authority, NEPAD, also on stage. We have Dr. Amani Asfer, the President of the Africa Business Council. Pleasure to have you here. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Patrick Antoine. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Private Sector Organization. All right, so before we get into the Q&A, I would like to now invite His Excellency Ambassador Chad Blackman, the Permanent Secretary of Barbados to the United Nations and WTO. He would be reading the joint communique and declaration on the inaugural AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum, and then right after that, we'll, of course, move on to the Q&A. So please welcome him as he comes back.
Thank you very much, and just for clarity, not the permanent secretary, but the permanent representative. And I read, we, African Export-Import Bank, Invest Barbados, Export Barbados, in collaboration with African Union Commission, Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, International Trade Center, African Union Development Agency, African Business Council, Pan-African Manufacturers Association, the CARICOM Secretariat, Caribbean Export Development Agency, and CARICOM Private Sector Organization convened the inaugural AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2022, which was held during September 1 to 3, 2022 in Bridgetown, Barbados. Having deliberated on the theme, One People, One Destiny, uniting and reimagining our future, recalling the decision of the African Union Executive Council that the African diaspora be designated as Africa's sixth region, acknowledging the decision of the Assembly of the Heads of State of the African Union, recognizing the African diaspora as a substantive entity contributing to the economic and social development of the continent, having regard to the decisions of the September 2021 meeting of the African and Caribbean heads of state and government, aware of the cultural and economic ties and benefits of an integrated African Caribbean economy towards driving industrialization and development, cognizant that the COVID-19 pandemic and the current crisis in the Ukraine pose an unprecedented threat against Africa's and the Caribbean's economic growth and development aspirations, stressing the critical importance of enhancing trade and investment ties between Africa and the Caribbean, as the key drivers of integration between the two regions. Having examined the immense opportunities for cooperation and the major structural challenges to enhancing Africa-Caribbean economic collaboration, being cognizant that fostering economic and social transformation in Africa and the Caribbean will require substantial financial and non-financial resources, recognizing that economic diversification through an inclusive and sustainable development agenda that builds upon Africa's and the Caribbean's resource potential is dynamic tools for poverty eradication, economic resilience, and structural transformation. Acknowledging the synergies between the African Union's Agenda 2063 and the vision of the Caribbean community towards unity, integration, and prosperity that is centered on its people. Hereby, reiterate or resolve to achieve goals and objectives of industrialization and sustainable economic development through mutual cooperation to reduce Africa's and the Caribbean's vulnerability to domestic and external shocks. Reaffirm our commitment to strategic commercial partnerships between the business communities in Africa and the Caribbean, with the objective of fostering bilateral cooperation and engagement in trade, investment, technology transfer, innovation, transport, tourism, culture, and other services. Commit to the upgrading and diversification of our economy's productive capacities through boosting of trade and investments between Africa and the Caribbean, as well as easing constraints to trade finance, trade services, and trade payments into the two regions. Support data sharing for effective trade information and customer due diligence. Request the African Union, CARICOM, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and other relevant stakeholders to formalize Africa-Caribbean political relations to advance economic cooperation and bilateral trade and investment. Call upon the African Union and CARICOM to explore an Africa-Caribbean free trade area to enhance market access and trade. Welcome the signing of the partnership agreement between AfriCaribbean Bank and sovereign Caribbean governments of Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, St. Lucia, Suriname, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and encourage other Caribbean states to sign and ratify the partnership agreement expeditiously and become partner countries. Welcome the announcement of AfriCaribbean Bank of a US $700 million facility to support trade and investments in the Caribbean partner countries, and welcome the proposed establishment of the Caribbean Export-Import Bank to support trade and investment between Africa and the Caribbean. Encourage CARICOM member states and institutions as stakeholders in AfriCaribbean Bank as a means to enhancing bilateral economic cooperation and unlocking financing from AfriCaribbean Bank to the region and boosting Afro-Caribbean trade and investment opportunities. Welcome the establishment of the Africa-Caribbean Business Council, involving the Africa Business Council, CARICOM Private Sector Organization, and AfriCaribbean Bank. Commit to a collaborative approach to take advantage of bilateral trade and investment opportunities in and amongst others, tourism, logistics, financial services, health industries, creative industries, the blue economy, and agriculture. Urge African and Caribbean financial institutions to support African Union and CARICOM member states to significantly scale up trade and investments as a fundamental priority for sustainable development. Commit to supporting the action that contributes to building and strengthening of the private sector, economic investment, trade relationships between Africa and the Caribbean. Resolve to strengthen the collaboration and engagements between Africa and the Caribbean, including through the institutionalization of the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum as a platform for annual bilateral engagement. And with the vote of thanks aspect of the statement, we thank over 1,200 participants from 41 countries, 16 Caribbean countries, 41 African countries, 16 Caribbean countries for their participation and contribution to the success of the forum. We further thank the registered participants from 25 non-African and non-Caribbean countries that's also participated and contributed to the success of the forum. We thank the government and people of Barbados for the hospitality that they have afforded to all participants and for the courtesies which ensured the success of the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2022. Finally, we wish to extend our gratitude to the 25 heads of state and their representatives, heads of international organizations and other delegations, Bank, Invest Barbados, Export Barbados, and their partners for successfully convening the African Trade and Investment Forum 2022 and adopted on this second day of September 2022 in Bridgetown, Barbados.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Blackman. It's been a great co-MC, I'm sure you would agree, for today. And thank you so much for the information that you just shared. Now, before I go on, two things I need to certainly address. You would have noticed I mentioned 6 names earlier, but clearly there are 7 people, so I must have missed out someone. So my sincere apologies. I'd like to also welcome to the stage Ambassador Wayne McCook, who is the Director General of the Office of Trade Negotiations, OTN, the Caribbean Community Secretariat. Please, if you can put your hands together for him. Thank you very much. And my sincere apologies for that. The second point I would make is, as we mentioned earlier, this is a press conference, and so no doubt I am going to be prioritizing the press. So I see, obviously, there are quite a few people here, and you want to be informed. Potentially, you would like to engage those on stage as well, but I really would be prioritizing the press, so if we do have a moment, we'll come to the others. So I just thought to make that point. So without further ado, I'd like to now invite the press to ask their questions. Please raise up your hands. I have Deborah with a microphone. She will be coming to you. Please introduce yourself and the media that you work with. Please make it concise so we can take more questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, greetings, Madam Prime Minister. My name is Brian Ngugi, a Kenya-based financial journalist, here to cover this important forum. I listened to your impassioned speech yesterday and that of Dr. Orama, where you both traced through historical and academic context why our regions are where they are economically, but also how we can move them forward. My question is, do you have practical timelines on when we would have direct flights from African aviation hubs and here?
That was to Professor Rama? Oh, I see, okay, all right. So when will we have direct flight? I think our approach will be to take the responses and then we'll come back to take more questions. So please, over to you, Prime Minister.
If I could twiddle my nose and make it happen now, it would happen tonight. The reality is that we've started more serious conversations than I've seen before. And as recent as yesterday evening, my Ministry of Tourism and International Transport met with a number of persons from the bank and from other countries. We're trying to see how best we can create a framework that will allow for charters first, if necessary. Barbados has indicated that we are prepared to work with 1 or 2 African countries to be able to do the co-marketing because you have to be able to sustain the traffic. And we hope that we can look at anchoring maybe a city out of North America as well to help with the traffic load. The second component, apart from the multi-destination trip, would be to allow us to carry cargo. If we can put stuff in the belly of the plane, it can then help reduce the cost of air traffic between our 2 countries, our 2 regions, sorry. So I'm hopeful that within a few months we can make a reality of this pipe dream that has been spoken about, not in terms of air travel alone, but remember what Marcus Mosiah Garvey said when he wanted to be able to move people back to Africa and the ship. And in fact, the quotation that President Orama used yesterday from Marcus Garvey is perhaps the most appropriate quotation that we could have, that a race that depends on others will never achieve economic resilience. And the first thing we need to do, as I said, remove the middle leg, remove the middleman, and remove the scars of the middle passage. It is wrong that our people have to go to the North Atlantic countries, US, UK, Canada, Europe, in order to be able to get a visa, a transit visa, not to stay there, but to come to us. So a Kenyan, a South African, a Ghanaian, a Rwandan, coming to Barbados, coming to St. Kitts, coming to Grenada, you've got to go via London or New York or Miami or Frankfurt or Amsterdam. That's wrong. And if we have not just a sense of history, but an appreciation for the economic activity that it will unlock, then I think that the case will be well made. But like with any child, you must creep before you walk. And like with new routes, we need to support it for the first year or two until it can sustain itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Okay, so let us begin from this side and we'll move.
I think President Orama wanted to add.
Oh, you want to make a point? Okay, please,
Thank you.
Professor.
Just to add one or two words to what the Honorable Prime Minister said on this subject. Those who are as old as I am will recall that in Africa, it used to be that if you wanted to go from Accra to Lagos, you flew first to London and then flew down back to Lagos. If you wanted to go from Lome just, because better people drove, you flew to Paris, and then from Paris you flew to London, and then from London you came to Lagos. But at a point when indigenous capital started becoming available, and there was a determination to change this, that began to change. And I'm proud to say that our President Bank contributed to it. We started financing indigenous people to buy aircraft when people said it wasn't a good idea. So today, you would rarely see where people have to do this kind of round-the-world travel to go from one point in Africa to the other. And I believe that is what will happen here. The determination, and I think the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mayor, is committed to that. I think a determination that will change this. And you have a bank like AfriCaribbean Bank that says, good ideas that come, we're not going to use the standard ways of assessing that credit to assess it. Our results will be, what we regard as success will be being able to have something that is sustainable. Will it be so smooth? It will not be. But if we keep at it, I tell you, in less than 5 years, this will be history. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Orama. Can we have the lady on this side, and then we'll make our way this way, if you don't mind. We'll come back to you, sir.
Thank you.
Once again, if you can, please let us know who you're addressing your question to and introduce yourself and your media.
I am Hassan from Al Ahram newspaper from Egypt. Thank you very much for attending this fruitful forum. My question to Dr. Orama, I would like to kindly break down the deals that were signed during the African-Caribbean trade and the total amount of the agreements. The second question for Prime Minister of Barbados. I want to first say that I really admire your character as a leader woman. The second thing I would like to know what the did you discuss yesterday with our ambassador, Egyptian ambassador? And what's the message you delivered to Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, our president? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let us start with Her Excellency the Prime Minister, and then we'll go to Professor
Thank you.
Rama.
I actually met with the ambassador when it was Jerome about 4 weeks ago, and we discussed our cooperation. First and foremost, to fight the climate crisis. Barbados will be at COP this year, and we believe that the work that has to be done is part of a continuum. We recognize that there is some pushback on the key issues of loss and damage, and also on adaptation financing. And we therefore talked about how we could make sure that these were central to the discussions coming up in the meeting in early November. We also recognize that your country, of course, is one of the meccas of tourism globally, and therefore we believe that there's opportunity for cooperation in tourism. Barbados is a mature tourism destination in the Caribbean, and therefore we think that there can be substantive cooperation between our two countries on that. And yes, the matter of airlift came up, because once again, we feel that we need to be able to ensure that our people can move to all parts. Interestingly enough, and President Orama will speak to what he has, but one of the key companies, for example, that has been discussing things with Barbados has been an Egyptian company, and we've been able to also link them with other countries within the region in terms of what we want to do there. You heard me say just now that if we can fill the bottoms of the planes, we can ensure that the flights are affordable to all. And therefore, we're looking not only at moving people, but moving goods. And we're looking at Egyptian investment as well into the region. And I think you saw some wonderful examples of it in the exhibition here. And I really want to thank President Orama for opening up that side in addition to the conversations we had with your ambassador. The last point I'd like to make, of course, is that we believe that the financial services, and President Orama and I talked about this last night at length again, that potentially we need in the Caribbean to have a greater presence in Cairo in order to be able to have that link with our financial services sector, which is critical to our economies in this region as well. So I hope that this is the beginning of many, 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 many more engagements. And I'm sure that we can continue to work together, not just on climate and tourism, but on other fundamental issues such as financing for development and the SDGs, which continue to be a bugbear in terms of our pursuit for them, especially as we face these crises globally today. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Rama, on the question about the deals, perhaps you can summarize for us. I'm sure there are many.
Oh, thank you very much. I think we can have our staff do that summary, because there are quite a number of deals that were signed outside here, signed in the different meeting rooms. Okay. Normally what we do is that at the end we compile, we do a summary and then we release it. We haven't done that yet, but once we do it, you'll get the data you are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, let's move over to this side of the room. If we can have the gentleman who put up his hand earlier. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. This is Samson from the Reporter newspaper. I came from Ethiopia to attend the forum. I wanted to ask about direct flight between Africa and the Caribbean island. My question is for Prime Minister Mia. As you know, Ethiopian Airlines, the largest African carrier, this week made a historic flight in over half a century. What's your advice in keeping up the momentum for African aviation companies like Ethiopian Airlines so that they would launch direct flight from Africa and Caribbean island? Do you think there is also a market potential for them to do so? My second question is also for Prime Minister Motley. It's related to with coffee, as I can see here, that's the most consumed item. So you may know that Ethiopia has the finest coffee in the world. And our government in Ethiopia is also trying to diversify the market and reach new markets. Do you think there is an opportunity for Ethiopian traders to export coffee to Barbados? Thank you.
Thank you. Interestingly enough, the Rwandan minister was just telling me they have the finest coffee in Africa. and the Kenyans tell me they have the finest tea, but so do the Rwandans. What I love about it is the traditional family rivalry. But needless to say, my answer to him was, I think we can buy some tea from Africa instead of Lipton's, and we can buy some coffee as well. The truth is, in the Caribbean, we also have in Jamaica the production of coffee, and there are other islands that are dabbling at it too. The bottom line is we must support each other's products. And right now, we're not in a position to do so because we go through a middleman. The middleman pushes what the middleman needs to push in order to get the volume, and more often than not, the middleman is pushing what he can put in that container that goes either to the Caribbean or Africa, which means that we may or may not get there. No different from a merchandiser in a supermarket who helps to position what they really want to sell by how they position it on the supermarket shelf. So I do hope that we can get to know each other. One of the things that I've asked us to do in Barbados is to have our national television station, CBC, enter an information exchange agreement with those countries that would wish to do so. So we package a CARICOM program and send to you every week, and you package a program from African countries every week. And why do I say so? I don't need to convince anybody on this stage. I don't need to convince anybody in this room. You're here because you believe it. But the people who we now have to bring on board are ordinary citizens. And they must see that the people in Ethiopia, or the people in Rwanda, or the people in Senegal, in spite of the language differences, are just like us. Similarly, you must see that the people in Barbados, or the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or the people in Belize are just like you. And once we begin to do that, you'll then say, oh, I didn't know. Bajans are watching Nollywood movies now for what, last 15 years? It's huge. But nobody came and promoted it here. It's just on the ground. And then through word of mouth, people shared with each other. We say now, word of mouth is not sufficient. We need institutions, because institutions will sustain trade, as President Orama and others on this stage will tell you. We need the institutions. We need the institutions that will allow transport to happen, maritime and air bridges. We need the institutions that will allow banking and insurance to happen, because once you're dealing with trade, you need to be able to pay. If you're dealing with the movement of goods, you need to be able to have insurance in the event that something happens. And then we need also to look at how can we facilitate the movement of people. There's an interesting fact that most people are not aware of. Africa, as you know, has a huge youth demographic dividend in the next few decades in this century. Caribbean, for the most part, regrettably, is underpopulated as well. And if we can work with each other in the areas where skills are deficient, then it will help to propel growth in a meaningful way. I just did an interview and I said, you know, in Barbados we have a statement, global citizen, Bajan roots, because we recognize that we cannot live in this world alone. But I really believe that one of the outcomes of this conference must be for Africans and the African diaspora everywhere. Global citizens, African roots. And if we can do that and have people move where their skills are needed, then we can ensure that you don't have an oversupply of labor and we don't have a shortage of skills to be able to propel growth. Because part of the anemic reasons for the anemic growth of the region is our lack of skills to be able to propel that growth, not just capital alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If we can go towards the back, maybe further back, to the third or fourth row, and then we'll come again to the front.
Good evening, everyone. President Orama, Prime Minister Motley, Mishron Robinson here from Capital Media HD 99.3. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm on the ground amongst entrepreneurs locally and further afield, but for the ordinary citizens, what blessed assurance do we have that practical moves will be made to ensure these ideas and proposals don't stop here, and how soon will we see them starting?
And you are directing that to President Orama, okay. So they would like to know how we ensure that it goes beyond talk today and we execute on some of our ambitions from here.
All right, thank you very much. We keep our promises. We're a bank. We didn't travel all these thousands of kilometers to come and make a show. We came here for a purpose. The coming here is an investment towards that end. The way we work, we have to realize the benefits of that investment. And the benefit of that investment is concrete results coming out of the commitments we make here. So you're going to see in the next few weeks and months actual things on the ground. We're going to have a mission come to the CARICOM, because one of the things we thought we would have done after this conference, thanks to Prime Minister Motley, we've almost achieved. We needed the basis, the framework to enable us as a bank do what we wanted to do, and that was the membership agreement we called a partnership agreement. Before we came here, only 3 countries were ready to sign. Yesterday, 7 signed. We are expecting 1 tomorrow and 1 next week. That's already 9. So, and it tells us that before you know it, we'll probably get the whole CARICOM. But 9 is more than enough to get started. So we are sending a mission here to understand the market better, develop a plan so that we begin to deal with the low-hanging fruits. Because we know that the reason for poverty in Africa and poverty here, the reason why others who come to our continent or to our countries do better than us is because we do not control our capital. We will tackle the capital problem aggressively. One of the things we've discussed with Prime Minister Motley is making sure that, apart from us, that we bring commercial banks here. We need the Caribbeans, we need Africans to have control of the banking system here. Because that's the only way the small Caribbean business person can have access to credit. Because otherwise, what has been happening is that the banking system is controlled for the benefit of those who have other objectives, which is different from ours. So the banks finance them to achieve the objectives, and sometimes making us poorer. So we will deal with that because that is the beginning. And once we begin to deal with that, other things will follow. I hope that by the next time we speak, you will be the one telling me either that we are moving too fast or, or you will suggest ideas about how we can also accelerate.
Thank you very much, President. All right, if I can come to the front row now. Let us start with this gentleman with the jacket. His hand has been up for a while.
Prime Minister, President, members of the panel, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say...
Sorry, introduce yourself, if you don't mind. Thank you.
My name
and make
is
it very concise.
Chris Elems. I work with Channels Television, Lagos, Nigeria, one of the biggest brands in Africa. You can Google it. It's been a forum for proposals, and I was going to make 2 proposals. One is to have a 100-meter dash with the Prime Minister, because the way she ran up the stage, showed that she's actually very, very fit.
That's 5 meters or less.
Thank you. And of course, the second one, you just spoke about it, because yesterday, President Orama talked about building that bridge, no matter how you want to do it, but build it, even if it means intermarrying. And that was the most I took out of yesterday's. And I've been looking around, not for me, for my younger brother, because I'm taken already.
So if you can just keep it type for benefit of others, please.
So, and then you spoke about, because today I was with someone from CBC, I was actually talking about the need for, because it's the fastest way to build that bridge. If we can't do it physically right now, we can do with the exchange of programs. And I was with someone at CBC today, we were discussing this. And I know my chairman, John Momo, is one man who would be committed to pushing this. And if there's anyone I should be talking to right now, just let me know so I could put a call across to him. He would be very willing to give us a platform for the exchange program.
I'm going to ask Invest Barbados representatives or Export Barbados, one of the two, to make sure they make the link with you. But you started in the right place by talking to CBC. That is who I've also asked the Rwandan minister to ensure that they speak to as well. And we will not only do it for Barbados, we'll do it for CARICOM, because as I said, we ourselves are sharing programs within CARICOM as well.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
sorry, just one thing, but you can also make sure that every month you do interviews from Lagos with Caribbean people and make sure that you bring it live every month, and we will help you facilitate that.
We'll start with you,
Promise made, promise kept.
All right. Gentlemen, to your left.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. My name is Bosin Amof. I am the anchor of Arise Exchange and Arise News Network out of Lagos, Nigeria. The war in Ukraine and the whole crisis, I was thinking I would hear so much about the network and collaboration between the Caribbean and AfriCaribbean Bank in terms of energy sustainability for both regions in the face of what we face in the aftermath of the ongoing crisis in Ukraine and Russia. So in what areas would we see collaboration and cooperation in terms of sustainable energy supply between the two regions?
Right.
And how that will, and how AfriCaribbean Bank will support that particular initiative to ensure that when we have perhaps another shock such of this nature as the current one in Ukraine, Africa and the Caribbean will have a sustainable energy within the global supply chain as well, outside oil. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
By the way, we're also bidding at Arise News for that news network, and I'm anchoring that particular show.
Thank you very much.
News. Thank you.
Thank you, Bosin. I believe that is to Professor Orama.
And the Prime Minister.
Okay, basically, he would like to find out how this collaboration is going to drive energy sustainability in both regions, given what we've seen in terms of the shocks created by the Russia-Ukraine crisis. More and more countries are looking to be more sufficient in terms of energy and collaborating to make sure that they have enough energy. So he wants to hear more about how this can help that process for both regions. So to the Prime Minister and also to Professor Rama, I believe.
I think that we are very clear that the opportunity for us to collaborate is now imperative. Let me put it another way. I think it was President Kagame who said that he would not believe that 1.3 billion people can be held hostage to a country that has, 43 million people with respect to the provision of grain and the provision of fertilizers. I say similarly that I do not believe that the region of the African region or the Caribbean region, both of whom are rich in energy resources, ought to be held hostage. What does this mean? That apart from the international arrangements we have with multinational corporations, many of us have state oil companies, and we need to start to see where the opportunities for partnership are with those state oil companies. We also need to see how we can improve the level of local ownership participation to ensure that where we do need support, we get it from those who have that capacity. Barbados this week in Houston, for example, would have announced that we will open a bid round for blocks on the 1st of December of this year. We've already awarded 2 blocks. There were 3, but 2 effectively. But we have a state oil company too, but we don't have a long and deep tradition in oil and gas. Trinidad does, Nigeria does. There are other countries in Africa that are equally emerging as major players globally. How do we work together through the provision of technical assistance, financial support and investment to be able to make these things happen? And I think that the example of what happened in Ukraine shows us that we cannot rely on others to guarantee our stability and our security going forward. And I therefore hope that this will be another area in which that partnership can happen. And I say another because yesterday I mentioned to you the Africa Medical Supplies Platform. In the midst of the pandemic, when we couldn't get PPEs, when in those days we thought we needed ventilators, and we couldn't get equally the conversations to have access to vaccines. It was the collaboration with the Africa Medical Supplies Platform, undergirded by the financing of the Africa Exim Bank, that made a difference to our people. Now, I'm aware that there is a similar platform, for example, for fertilizer and grain. And while our needs may not be as acute with respect to grain, our farmers have seen fertilizer costs go way through the roof. Our problem is that our scale is just simply not there. And we therefore may have to look to work collaboratively outside of CARICOM with others in the Caribbean, be it Cuba, be it the Dominican Republic, be it northern Brazil, be it Venezuela, in order to ensure that in working with Africa, that we can ensure that our prices, the prices at which our farmers access the fertilizer, are far, far more affordable than they are as a result of this war. And I can go further with respect to common procurement platforms for water. The colonizers put down water mains in all of our countries 100, 120 years ago. And almost every one of our countries is facing a severe problem with non-revenue water. But if we were to pool resources in terms of the procurement such that we can get better prices, the fact that Barbados has less than 300,000 people and Nigeria is what, near 300 million, that you will not therefore see a disparity in the unit pricing because we're coming together to work together to be able to access it in the same way that we did with the Africa Medical Supplies Platform. I'm sure that there are other opportunities in the energy sector as well, but I went broader than energy to just show you that what matters is not so much the subject area, but the attitude and approach, one for collaboration and two for de-risking, that we come now to today's moment to be able to deal with. And that is the importance of this inaugural African Caribbean Trade Forum, because it allows us to see how we can work together to unlock those very difficult issues that have only been made worse, regrettably, by matters beyond our control. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Rama, please go ahead. And I do know that Dr. Asfor wants to say a couple of things about this too.
Okay.
No, but you can go ahead, sir. Okay, whichever way. Can we switch on her microphone, please?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Go ahead.
So thank you very much for this question about energy, and I believe Prime Minister have really responded very adequately. As Africa Business Council, we already signed yesterday with the Caribbean Private Sector Organization to establish the Africa Caribbean Business Council, and I believe the driving force will be the private sector from Africa and the Caribbean. We need the public-private sector dialogue. We need the conducive environment. And with reference to LNG, one of the sponsors, El Sweety Electric, he is chairing the energy sector of the Africa Business Council. And already yesterday, he already said that they are ready to come and invest in renewable energy here in the Caribbean. What we really need is information. We need, as Ambassador Moshenka have said, regional studies of mapping exercise, what is existing on the continent, what is existing here in the Caribbean, and how we really match make those business opportunities and investment in the Caribbean and making those very important business linkages. So it is very important that we already signed as private sector. We are ready to help in different sectors, and we need the blessings of the government and the conducive environment and the finance of AfriExim Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Rama?
Just let me add quickly to what has been said. I think, excuse me, I think that the energy sector, especially oil and gas, is where this partnership we are building will be most impactful in helping the Caribbean region realize the potentials they have. Africa has built the experience, the expertise in oil and gas. You have it in Nigeria, you have it in Egypt, you have in South Africa, you have to some extent in other countries. Sure. But Egypt and Nigeria, I think, have quite substantial capacities in oil services and so on. And because the sector is capital intensive, it needs capital, it needs expertise on how to structure the financing. And again, with humility, I can say that today, AfriExim Bank is the largest oil and gas financing entity on the continent. And the expertise goes all through the value chain, from upstream to midstream to downstream, all the structures you have, and advisory. But because of the need that is arising in Africa, because many of the banks that used to finance along with us have all withdrawn because of because they were told to stop financing Africa's oil and gas. So most of that financing has fallen on us. So we now collaborated with Africa Petroleum Producers Organization to create Africa Energy Bank that will be focused on this. Because Africa is in a bit of a situation, COP27 will be discussing this. The idea that Africa should just all of a sudden cut off financing oil and gas and so on is like saying, Africa, to promote the idea of decarbonization for the graveyard. Because without it, we are not going to be able to develop. To the extent whereby we will then gradually move away from fossil fuel. And I'm sure that will be the same question that the Caribbean will be facing. But the good thing is that AfriCaribbean has the capacity, has the expertise to support the kind of activities the private sector will be doing, as Dr. Asfor mentioned, to help develop any opportunities that arise, to help also to use oil and gas to create the wealth that will then make it easier to transition to renewable energy. To use the oil and gas services sector to create the ability to have certain, the kind of technology that is required. For example, if you do a lot of pipes, which the oil and gas sector requires, you are then able to perhaps be able to produce big guns, because it's all about pipes. So I believe that that is where we can contribute much here. If more oil and gas fields are discovered and they start producing. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Okay, so we really have to begin to round this up. I know many questions are coming, so I'm going to go to this side and perhaps to the middle again. Let's start with the lady on this. We'll take the questions together. Let's start with the lady. Please, if you can make it really brief and introduce yourself and straight to the point.
Sure, thank you. My name is Chidom Pemba, and I'm the African Union Special Envoy in Youth, representing for the 55 member states in Africa in the cabinet. And what I found is that the common theme when it comes to young people across Africa, which is the largest demographic, has been in terms of access to opportunities, access to financing and funding. And I found that that's also common in terms of speaking to my peers within the Caribbean. So my question is, in terms of deals, is there anything that would take into consideration access to financing to the youth for trading and investment? Because often we're saying that financing is not so friendly to young people. Right. And what needs to be done for youth to get access to these opportunities? Are there any programming? And how can we leverage on the youth that we have in Africa as well as in the Caribbean? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take the question from the gentleman raising his hand back there. No, right there, right there. His hand has been up for a while. Thank you.
Clayton Clark, Tobago Channel 5 News and Tobago Media and Services Solution. My question is to President Orama and Prime Minister Motley. Yes, we haven't fully come to an end and an evaluation has not been done as yet, but how would you assess achieving the goals of this conference? Meeting the goals, have you met, exceeded, and what are the highlights for you, both of you, of the conference?
Thank you. All right. If I sneak one more, maybe I should come again to the front
maybe
here.
From one of our Francophone.
Okay, Frank, do we have any of our Francophone speaking? Okay, please go ahead.
Your Excellency, should I ask a question in French or in English?
Oh, no. English is good.
Okay, my name is Joël.
We just wanted to make sure we...
Okay, my name is Joël Asoko. I'm a business reporter for Jeune Afrique Media Group. I had just one single question for the panel as a whole. If within the next 12 months, just one concrete thing, a law, an agreement, a contract, whatever, has to happen to move forward the goals and the ambition of the forum, for you, what should that be? What would that be?
Thank you for that.
Next 12 months?
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, I really have to come back to the panelists now to respond to these questions, and we may begin to wrap. So we have 3 questions. The last one, very strong one. Over the next 12 months, what could be a concrete achievement that we're targeting? And then we have a question about Professor Rama's assessment of the achievements of the goals of this event. And then we also have a question relating to access to finance for youth. I'll hand over to the Prime Minister to speak to perhaps the first one.
In terms of concrete achievements, clearly the air bridge, air travel, sea travel, opening up our markets. But we've also been able to discuss the possibility of joint marketing with some of the African ministers who've come here, because we believe that we benefit from the same demographics, and therefore that can happen. With respect to the question before in terms of the evaluation, it hasn't only been at the level of the specifics, and you heard me speak about some initiatives that have sparked conversations over the last 24 hours or so in terms of substantive investment, But we've also, for example, had very good conversations this evening with the Africa Development, AU Development Council, and seeing how we can let them work with the CARICOM Development Fund, because they have the same approach and they have the same objective in terms of bringing development to our people, particularly recognizing that while we are seeing growth, in order for it to be sustainable, we need to move people out of poverty, and that therefore requires multiple types of actions on all fronts. So I'd like to say, and you just heard about the cooperation between the Africa Business Council and the Caribbean Private Sector Organization, which is a key entity for us, because I keep making the point, governments don't fuel growth themselves by trading. Governments facilitate the environment within which households and companies and multinationals will trade. So that engagement is critical to the outputs that we want to see in terms of spurring growth in our region. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Rama, on the point about access to finance for the youth, and then, of course, your assessment of the achievements of the objectives of this event.
Thank you very much. For us, we have the creative industry, which is largely youth and women dominated, especially on the continent. That has a special facility, not only on lending side, but also on the equity side. And we have developed special criteria for assessing the credit and eligibility of those who are able to access them. Of course, we also have our SME program that makes it easier for us to support the youth, because the program combines not only financing but also training and capacity building, market access, and all of the other skills that we believe that the youth require as they begin to develop their business. So we have dedicated functions that look at this, and although we don't call it a youth program, they are essentially youth dominated. We're also collaborating with the African Union Commission. We run during the inter-African trade fairs, along with a company called AE Trade. We have a youth pavilion where we expose the youth to all, first of all, to markets, and of course the other services that are required to enable them have access to finance. We're working also with the African Union Development Program. I think there is something that will be launched very soon, but we've been working with them to support the youth entrepreneurs. I think we selected, I don't know, maybe you should talk about that program. I don't know if it's Thomas. But through these collaborations, plus others, time will not allow me to permit, with other NGOs, we have been able to touch the many youths across Africa. And we hope we'll bring the same here to the Caribbean. I think Honorable Prime Minister Modley has touched on what we regard as success. I will also add that I will regard our establishing here and beginning to lend money here as success. I will also say that our fostering investments here, not plans, but clear investments here, I will regard it as success. And it should happen within 1 year, so that we can demonstrate that we recognize the urgency of now in what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Because President has asked me to say something, I will just explain what I just had. Actually, there was a session on Energize Africa, and also explained what are, the various tools, products that we'll make available, and that is the collaboration between AfriCaribbean Bank and the African Union Development Agency. And under the Energize Africa, we'll have a special window for capital available to youth enterprises. And this will be complemented by the African Development Bank, which has already dedicated $1.5 billion for youth enterprises. And then we will come to the nitty-gritties of the cap and also the various details of how you would be accessing this fund. We're working on that, and soon you'll be hearing from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And I think on that note, we have come to the end of this interaction. I do see some other hands up, but sadly, we have dinner to attend, right? So you certainly would have the opportunity to engage after this. And we want to thank everyone that has been on the stage for this interaction. And before we round up, I would like to invite Dr. Asfer, the President of the Africa Business Council, to step forward to deliver some gifts to, first of all, Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados. If I may ask for the Prime Minister to step forward. Thank you very much. And second to, of course, no doubt, one of the other chief facilitators of this event, the President of the AfriCaribbean Bank, Professor Benedict Orama. Thank you very much, Dr. Asfer. And on that note, I want to say thank you again to all the members of the press that have come from all over, especially those from Africa. Thank you so much for making it. And we look forward to reading your reports on today's event. And on that note, I want to say thank you, and we look forward to having you at dinner later on tonight. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank God. We got to the end of